think that's pretty good. Fantastic. Good. Just getting our sound sorted in the room, and I think we are good to go. All right. Welcome everybody. We've got to our presentation on our refreshed risk management framework. Start online. Online we have Chanel, Kate, Gretchen and Gary. Thank you very much for attending. In the room, hope you can see we've got Kevin, Neil and myself. Jenny and Joanne as well. Richard too. And Amanda. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction and I'll pass it over to Jenny. By way of introductions, I just wanted to say that a key part of the Audit and Risk Committee's terms of reference is oversight of and making sure we have a risk management framework in place in the organisation. Certainly from my perspective, any organisation of this size around the country, whether it's a public body or a private entity, will have a risk management framework in place. And they all have audit and risk committees that oversee it. So even if you're in a private entity, you would see the same sort of approach happening. And so I'm really pleased to get today's presentation. Then we can have some questions as well and just really make sure that we all have a good understanding of what's going on in terms of our risk management framework. So great that we've got members of the Audit Risk Committee here and some councillors who are not as well who are attending. So that's fantastic. All right, so that's sort of setting the scene. It is part of our terms of reference. It is actually the number one bullet point on our terms of reference, making sure we've got our risk management framework in place. So I'm going to pass over to Jenny just to take us through that, or maybe Joanne, is it first? Yep, fantastic.
Okay, I'll just take a few moments to set the scene. Good afternoon for those who I'm meeting for the first time. My name is Joanne Greatbanks and I'm Manager of Organisational Planning and Performance. My role as Manager OPP, as we call it, and to shorten it, it's relatively new in the organisation in that it was established about 10 months ago by Amanda to bring together previously disparate functions around planning, performance, improvement, and of course risk. And 6 months ago, we were lucky enough to get Jenny Irving in to join the team as business partner, senior business partner, risk and assurance. So since then, we have been busy developing enterprise risk management framework to bring together all the existing risk focus that's been previously into one cohesive, supportive and structured approach to managing risk across the organisation, as is the focus of the entire OPP team. And once we've done that, it's very much about that experience for staff in that they can manage risk very much as business as usual. It's really a key aspect of what we do, and it's seen as much more than just a compliance activity, which means that we can really bake it into the efficiency and effectiveness of what we do across those business units, delivering value to the community, which is what it's all about. So with that, Jenny's got some slides to actually talk about the framework in detail and then questions as and when are at the end.
Great. Thank you.
So kia ora, I'm Jenny, and nice to meet you all for those that I haven't. I'll briefly take you through, I guess, the purpose of the Enterprise Risk Management Framework. As Joanne said, we weren't starting from scratch, so we have sort of pulled together the foundations that were there across ORC. There was a framework that had been written and established in 2016 and various bits of work like the deep dives and the strategic risk register that had been developed. But there has been a slightly, I guess, fragmented approach to risk across the organisation. Developing this framework essentially will give us, I guess, a structured and consistent way that we approach and report on risk across ORC. And so it's really getting this foundation in place and then using that as the building blocks for developing the rest of how we manage risk from this framework. So as we've got here, the challenges that we face at ORC, I guess the main objective for me and my role is to make sure that risk is informative and is helping us build resilience within ORC and helping us make risk conscious decisions and sort of be a bit more forward facing instead of reactive when risks occur, and then being really clear. Oh, jeepers, what's happened there? Still got it. So that's the purpose of the framework. This here, so we did I guess a bit of mapping around what existed at ORC, and we've pulled that all together and come up with a maturity uplift plan that we can roll out over the coming sort of 3 to 5 years with short, medium and long-term objectives. I think our focuses will be sort of evolution, not revolution, making sure that we're embedding it really effectively in day-to-day operations and that risk is really meaningful and helpful to the organisation. So as you can see, we had a pretty well-established strategic risk, which ARC would have seen historically, and we'd started doing deep dives. And on the right is obviously where our uplift plan hopes to take us sort of within the next 3 to 5 years. So we have written the framework. Obviously, we're open to any feedback and making sure that it's fit for purpose for ORC, that it's sort of agile and we can keep improving on the framework as required. The next step for us is to start establishing the risk appetite framework, which will really establish our key strategic risks and incorporate some operational risks that are really prudent to what ORC is trying to achieve. And then longer term, so obviously risk and control assessments, which are more at the granular day-to-day business level, and ensuring that we're embedding that reporting and that flow of information is coming back through to you at a governance level. So we've based our framework and our work going forward obviously off best practice in the ISO 31000, and our approach is obviously the 3 lines of defence. So you're sitting at the independent assurance third line. I'll obviously pick up the second line of risk function, and then first line of business operations, day-to-day management of risk, where individual risks are sort of identified and managed. And so that there's, I guess, an independence of decision making across those layers. This is the model that we have come up with. I guess the strategy, or R2 to R5, are the really meaty main components of the framework and how that is brought to life within ORC. And then we have a whole lot of tools and enablers that will allow us to, I guess, feed into our risk principles, our risk appetite, and that reporting that's coming through to your governance on a quarterly basis. And then finally, I guess, a broad overview of next steps. So the next formal step for us is making sure that everyone feels comfortable with the enterprise risk management framework. If that is acceptable, then we will start building on the next steps, which is obviously the risk appetite framework and risk and control assessments, and making sure that as we build that work, that it's really getting utilised and established, and we're sort of uplifting the maturity and confidence across ORC sort of in the business units. So that's a really broad overview of what we're hoping to achieve, and happy to take, I guess, any questions or queries or critiques.
Thank you very much for that, Jenny. I might just start off and just sort of ask if we go back a slide. So a fantastic, I guess, for everybody to know, sort of, from my perspective, having a framework like this with these components is, to me, quite standard. So you know, I would see this in other places as well. So it's more a matter of how we embed it in this organisation and make it work for this organisation, which is certainly key in my mind. I will sort of ask, I think you've got different people with different roles and responsibilities throughout the organisation. Maybe if we do start at that sort of governance level, which is the audit and risk level, if you could sort of just explain to us here in terms of what the audit and risks responsibility is here, because I think in terms of what we should possibly have oversight of, or you know, how our involvement should go according to this framework.
So the risk appetite will be, I guess, set based on the appetite of leadership and councillors. And then the risk KPIs, which will be sized through risk assessment, any risks that we deem critical to being able to deliver on IC objectives, or prudent for decision making, will be filtered through. As we build that, we will need to sort of work out, along with cadence, how much information the ARC is wanting to see.
Yep.
I guess there'll be a lot of low risks which you may not be wanting to go through the nitty-gritty, and so do you feel comfortable with the risk impact matrix and the impact of some risks, and are you wanting to see risks that are identified as sort of medium to severe, or
Yep.
So there's a bit of teasing out there, but definitely risk appetite metrics as well as KPIs will be what filters through to ARC at a governance level. And as we build on that, there should be some sort of horizon scanning and making sure that we're forward looking in terms of risks that are coming up for ORC.
So just I'll drop your question in a second, Kate. But just important for us to realise that we do have input into what we want to see in our committee in terms of the type of reporting that comes through in this space. And like Jenny said, in terms of, do we want to see all the granular details of things that are happening out there, or only certain things when they hit a certain threshold that we think our eyes should be over it. So that's good. All right, thank you. And Kate, did you ask your question?
Oh, look, just because I've just read an email where the government's doing one code of compliance, standardising these things, it just seems timely just check in whether our local government and with local government reform, whether the same framework or model is being used by the TAs in Otago or where they're at, and equally as our neighbours on the West Coast, Canterbury and Southland.
I'll let Janine just talk to whether we know anything about our neighbours. Just clarify, you're talking about those standard code of conduct.
So that's
right. Yeah, sorry, just to make sure. Yeah. So that was flagged as part of the system, local government systems work that they've been doing, but separate, I guess, to I haven't heard them at a local government level talk about developing a consistent mandatory risk framework yet, but I don't know, Jenny, if you've had any conversations with our neighbours or our TAs?
That's a very timely question, because we just had a Tiwai Punamu risk meeting yesterday. Most other councils at similar maturity to us, some are slightly ahead, but majority are just going through the process now of establishing risk appetite frameworks, or in the process of refreshing those and making sure that the thresholds and metrics that they're using are appropriate, and that reporting is, I guess, helpful for decision making and embedded across the organisation. So the work that we're doing is very much in keeping there with what other councils are looking to achieve.
Right. Yeah. And they'll be able to be assimilated together at a point. They're not inconsistent models, is what I'm really just making sure.
Yeah, correct. Most of us are basing it obviously off the ISO 31000, which is a fairly generic standard, and then councils are obviously making it fit for purpose around environment and climate factors.
Yeah. Oh no, that's great. Thank you. Sorry.
No, it's a very relevant point, Kate, in terms of making sure that this works into the future. But yes, certainly from my side of things as well, this sort of framework will be is either in place everywhere else in terms of TAs and otherwise, already, and everyone will be on a different scale in terms of how they've embedded it in so far.
Right.
Yeah, Kevin.
So how will you show us that we have effectively embedded this new process into business as usual?
That's a good question. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So as I alluded to earlier on, we really want this to be just a normal perspective that business units take when they are considering their opportunities as well as their exposure in that risk sense. alongside every other dimension of performance that they look at. So we really see that the risk reporting actually line up to the other performance reporting that we have in those business units. And of course, wherever we understand what the situation is now, current state, you'll be able to tell, because like any of the other performance reporting, it will be how we've moved towards the target situation that we want. So the short answer to that is it will be a standard dimension of our existing performance reporting and also planning for those business units. That's what it's planned to be. It will take us a little bit of time.
Yeah. No, I'm not expecting action. Well, I'd like action tomorrow, but the final result will take time.
And alongside improvement as well. So that's the key thing. Yeah. So everybody's looking at the planning, the performance, the risk, and the improvement all lined against each other.
So what were the particular things that drew you to this model as opposed to other models that might be about?
Well, it's probably that's a joint answer, but I'll go first.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but it's just sort of the.
So from Ginny's perspective, my perspective, we absolutely wanted to align to, international best practice. We really wanted a standard and a horizon that pulls us forward. That really gives us what those goalposts look like, both for the organisation as a whole, but then for each of the layers within it. So from my experience, the clearer that you can make those goalposts, the more simple you can make the guide rails for people to do the right things within it. The whole thing will move forward relatively easy. And then what was key for me specifically was being in that deployment space, which is where we take, all this good intent and we actually embed it into the operational engine. It's really cognizant of those enabling pieces around it. So you can't just throw a framework out or a standard out to, even really smart managers and teams without understanding how you can really help and support them to do the right thing and engage them as well. So what we've done in this model is left it very much open that there are points within it that staff themselves can feed back into the process and actually strengthen the whole thing. So two ends, really. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, Neil.
That one. Would it be likely that we could expect to see in some of the reports that come to council decisions that the risk aspect might be, where appropriate, covered off in terms of the framework as well in some sort of consistent manner? Would that be a realistic expectation?
In terms of everybody approaching it in a standardised way so that we can all speak the same language and see the same things.
And it becomes part of the decision making. The governments are informed and the person that whoever the report writer is has covered the risk aspects in a consistent manner so that we can say, that's been thought about, because experience tells me sometimes that the risk is thought about after you've done something.
Yeah.
And not necessarily part of the analysis in the front end. So that's, from what I've read, it seems that's how it would pan out.
Definitely that proactive joined up thinking right from the get-go. Absolutely.
Yeah, I certainly think where the rubber hits the road is within each division, within each sort of team within the organisation, they'll have, they've got their, they're working on very unique things. And so some of them will have a risk mindset already just because it's part of their day-to-day. And others may have not, because it's not part of their day-to-day. So this sort of really helps. And I think it's having that consistent language so that things can be reported up as and when needed. Just thinking about what you were saying, Neil, in terms of you certainly here you'd have we're responsible for managing infrastructure, flood banks, and you'll have those teams out there. They'll be monitoring physical things at the moment, and there'll be certain levels of mandatory compliance, regulatory compliance that they have to follow. But then there's always sort of this there'll be a balance alongside that. Not everything can be gold plated. Money isn't infinite, so people do have to make calls and decisions on things. So it's sort of helping that discussion and then helping things raise up the level as well. Yeah. So hopefully that's making some sense online. Chanel and Gary and Kate as well, just in terms of some of the practicalities of how we'll the teams and the staff will adopt this, and some of them will have processes in place to think about risks of what they're doing and report upwards. But now we're sort of getting some consistent language right across it.
I have more.
Go.
So just going further into the text, into the document that goes with it. And again, there was just, so in the overarching purpose, which is really good, effective risk management, and it goes on. And then the very last statement, in a way that balances opportunity with protection, that's in the big black box here. So what is going to be the trigger that ensures we align our risk considerations with our actions? That all of a sudden, because we've got this framework in place, I'm not, and I'll use this analogy because it's obvious, that I'm all of a sudden not using 420 road cones when I could get away with 20. You understand what I'm trying to say? So what's that trigger that makes us not overawed or overrun by risk considerations and not actually getting on with the job?
I guess it's having that balanced perspective so that it is one dimension of performance and being able to do the job at hand. So this is not meant to be bureaucratic in the least. Yeah. It's meant to be quite empowering and kind of bandwidth freeing, I guess, in a way, in that they are able to actually, the beauty of this is you've got to have all the data together. So we're going to be able to talk about what is core operational performance for a business unit, as well as what they are seeing as their risk, and being able to have a conversation about how to balance those so we don't go play or we don't, under control something. And it's a dialogue and it's the ongoing conversations that will actually move us forward.
Yeah.
Beyond any kind of technology piece or any framework piece. It's actually being able to have that joined up conversation and getting some data behind us that again is joined up. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, good. But and so let's look the other way. There'll also be so that's a conversation piece, and that's all sounds really good. But there'll be also that we don't become so relaxed because we're having those, and it is business usual, that instead of putting 20 out, we only put 2 out.
Yeah.
So that's the balance that we'll,
And I guess it's having that transparency, because there will be that linked up perspective in terms of the reporting at all those levels.
Yeah.
And the idea is that we achieve that golden thread whereby we can see, the strategic intent with that operational intent, and then what people are doing individually on the day-to-day.
Yep.
Maybe I'll just add in from someone who doesn't know a lot about this sort of stuff. So but we've had a number of really good sessions at ELT. From a practical point of view, what I see us being able to do is communicate really clearly to our leaders what our risk appetite is for different activities across the business.
Yeah.
At the moment, we don't do that consistently, so they are really making their own decisions, and some might have zero appetite, so they put out 500 cones, and some might say, I'm all good with whatever, and I won't even use a cone.
Yeah.
So the ability for us to have something consistent to go back to our people leaders, and particularly in certain areas of the business where their activities are very, there is a lot of activities they're undertaking, which you could say are more prone to risk than others, and say this is the appetite we have set and we've tested with governance, ELT, down through the managers to team leaders, and we are happy as an organisation to have this level of risk applied to these activities, and therefore your decision should reflect that. That's how I see it working in a practical sense.
Cool.
And also that why those are set that way, that part of the story also breeds that shared understanding and shared purpose.
Yep.
I'll just add to that as well. I guess at the granular level, the risk and control assessments that they do across their business units should identify the main risks with the inherent and residual risk based on the controls, and where it's a risk that may result, say, in something extreme like death or a huge loss of money. Obviously, they might be a little bit more careful in the decisions they make around those sorts of risks, where it's a risk that if it goes badly, it's not so severe, they may decide that actually 2 road cones is fine. And so it's actually about being able to look across the risks that they're risk owners for, and the level of severity of those risks, and then make decisions that align with those outcomes. And so that should just be, I guess, extra information that should aid that decision making, but definitely shouldn't prevent them making decisions.
But one of the most empowering things about this should be that we should be down the right side of the conversation, and we should absolutely not be anywhere near, what is not good practice. So it takes that whole ambiguity out of that end of things, which frees up people's time to then be at the good end of practice.
Yeah. No, so it's a good question, because a lot of people, when they hear the word risk, they think, oh, someone's going to tell me to say that I can't do something.
Yeah.
Saying no, but it's actually it's supposed to be more empowering to open up and let people do things within their own remit.
Yeah.
Here, go away and do your job within this remit.
Yeah, with the knowledge that this is the So if I'll add another one.
We'll go.
Right. One of the things, and this is a big part of local government reform, is duplication. So we know under the compliance, so with Janet, that goes around regularly with checking out that we're doing everything and all bits of piece of paper and all that are in place. So you don't see this as, and I like the fact that you're sort of pulling things together so we're all under one framework. So will you be ensuring that we're getting rid of any duplication, and probably even duplication in people's minds that we've got to do extra stuff when in fact so how are you going to test all that out?
Well, I guess the first step to all that is to actually surface it. And I think the framework actually helps us bring all those aspects together and surface them together, which means we'll be able to see the points of duplication a lot clearer. But throughout this, it talks about, proportionality and making sure that we are being, I guess, economically and efficient in how we approach things. So in terms of the comply with piece of the puzzle, it's clearly it sits within one of those segments. And so we'll be able to have that combined viewpoint, I guess. And then we'll be able to make decisions about whether we do want to, let's say, stand some aspect down because it's not adding value. Ultimately, we do want to take as much waste out, if it is duplication and it's not adding any value. But I guess doing so in a really deliberate, intentional, considered way, which I think this provides us that foundation.
The scope to do that. Yeah. Cool. That's good.
Daniel?
Not because I'm a fan of rinse and repeat, but in local government, it's so simple. If we were to go and look at Environment Southland or Canterbury or those other ones in terms of their risk frameworks, will we see something pretty similar to this?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, everyone will have a framework similar to this, and then they'll have core components, which is the risk appetite framework, which provides reporting to governance, and that sort of more operational risk and control self-assessments with the mitigation and reporting out of that residual risk.
So the only thing that's no one's reinventing the wheel in terms of the framework necessarily, but what they're doing is then making it fit for the purposes of what's relevant to them and theirs.
Proportional,
right. And that signature practice around what fits your organisational culture best and what will provide momentum for improvement thinking in that space. But for us, I think rather than just lift those standards off the shelf, one of the big focus and differences for us is that focus on deployment, to make sure that it's really embedded, to make sure that we've got integrated thinking. So you can have the best framework in the world, but unless you focus on deploying it and having it make sense at the front line, it's going to go nowhere.
And I certainly see that one of the key roles of the committee will be to keep an eye on that particular aspect. To make sure that progress is being made.
And it's got to be, ultimately when it's implemented, it's got to be consistent across the board, and not just a tick box exercise or tell those governors the right answer.
Yeah,
because that's it's fun to do, I suppose, but actually, does it help the overall end result? Just make a mockery of having a framework, and going to be out of framework, you've got to make sure it works. I guess the proof of the pudding ultimately will be in the delivery to come. But hearing what Richard said, where the whole team is going, I think it's probably going to help people do what they do. So, thanks. Cool. Oh, can I just, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
If I was, and what I also want to add is that if I took the overarching purposes and the stock that we've got, you'd probably find every overarching purpose in any other local government would be something similar to that. It would have, well, and if it's not, I'd be starting to wonder, well, what are you doing that's different? Yeah. In Auckland, it's going to be different.
Good.
Process from here?
Yeah, so
It's
next
next
steps. Shall I let you say out now what next steps are? Because we do have a audit and risk committee meeting coming up in a few weeks' time.
Well, we're actually in the process, so we've got a paper, and so we are actually, I won't be at that meeting, but Amanda will be there. So it's going to be a case of coming to you with, I guess, to adopt it, if you are in support of that general intent, and then to actually work on the risk appetite statements and actually start to lock those in, as well as reporting cadence. What else am I missing? And what's actually included in that reporting. And we thought at the first instance we might probably provide a little bit more than we would do later down the track, perhaps, to get everybody familiar with what you want to say. I think one of the primary objectives for us is that you really have your hand in this, and we can actually shape this however you feel it will best suit you to underpin your decision making. Then after that, it's about actually also we've got to get the KPIs together to again build out that reporting side of things. So eventually, we can see that like a dashboard type situation come into play. And then it would be a case of working with the business, making sure that those who are already got good structure and momentum are just flying through this process, which then leaves us with the opportunity to actually work with those others. We've also got other dimensions of where the deep dives come in, so what we're going to do about those, and also the external audit. So we've got that governance piece, we've got that internal organisation piece, we've got an independent sort of assurance piece. Missing anything, Jenna?
No, that's it for now.
So fantastic. So in a couple of weeks' time at the committee, this will be presented because it's draft, just for comment and endorsement. And then the following committee will be the one where you'll maybe ask for some discussion around risk appetite. Is that right? Or?
So we'll start establishing the risk appetite framework, what those thresholds are towards risk, what those statements are, and possible metrics that we can use for that reporting.
Yeah, that might be in June.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
So we are going to progressively build it out, which gives us lots of opportunity for, continuous improvement along the way, because that's, it's very much, it needs to be a tool that really serves your needs.
Right. Yeah.
Because I understand the delegations that we've got so well, which means I haven't checked. Does the Audit and Risk Committee actually get to sign this off, or does it get a recommendation to council? Or is it
Picked up.
flicked up? I figured it might.
Yeah.
Once you get, most stuff that's been audit and risk gets flicked up, and the flicked up people go, oh, that must be right.
So yeah, if it's the endorsement,
Yeah,
your endorsement and the
Just
next
goes
one.
up in the minutes.
Yep.
Doesn't get re-presented.
Yep.
Right, that sounds great. So yeah, if you can make sure on that paper there's a sort of a nice timeline in terms of that committee, we're doing this, and then just in the following quarter, this is the next bit that's going to be asked.
I suppose, Andrew, the only thing with that would be, does that slow the any process up too much, and we may need to be called in sooner to do something? Just a thought. I'm just talking audit and risk.
Yeah.
Is that time frame?
Don't
come
in
back
terms
to
of quarterly audit and risks, we don't want to hold up your process because of frequency of a meeting. So, but just keep that in mind when you're working.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Great. All right. Any other thoughts and comments from people? All right, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Joanna and Jenny, for all the great work you've done. It sounds like you've had some good discussions internally with the senior exec team in the labs.
Absolutely, yeah.
So which is actually the key bit of it is getting everyone involved. So thank you very much for all your work. Appreciate it. All right, we'll close out there.
That's it.
Right, thank you.
Okay.